Good morning and happy fiscal new year. This week is Parashat Vayechi, the conclusion of Sefer Bereshit. When Yaakov Avinu dies, a great anxiety seizes Yosef's brothers. Will there be a power struggle for dominance in the family? And if there is, doesn't Yosef hold all the cards? And doesn't Yosef have abundant reason and ability to subjugate them, to punish them, to avenge the terrible way they treated him all those many years ago? Now, there is another story that's similar to ours. When the brothers say, Lu yistamenu Yosef, perhaps Yosef will hate us and will now pay us back for all the bad things we did to him, they evoke the story of their own father. Esav hated Yaakov for taking his bracha and only planned to wait for Yitzchak to die before taking his revenge. The language of the Torah there, Vayistom Esav, the same word. So perhaps Yosef, the brothers think, will follow Esav's playbook, and they would have to flee from Egypt for their lives, as Yaakov had to flee. Or maybe he would even actually kill them, as he had threatened to do. Their fears are certainly warranted, or maybe warranted, but their solution is bizarre. They send a messenger to Yosef, according to the Midrash Bilha, saying that their father had left instructions to Yosef to please forgive now the sins of his brothers and the wrongful ruin they had done to them. When Yosef hears the words, he cries. When they prostrate themselves before him and offer to be his servants, which seems like the clearest fulfillment of Yosef's first dream, he appeases them. He promises to treat them well, and he says that whatever evil had been in their intentions had been turned to good by the will of Hashem. Now, there is at least one commentator, Beno Yaakov, who thinks that the brothers here have told the truth, and that Yaakov indeed left such a command. Only the Torah just never mentioned it until now. But the majority view is that this is a lie. Not only a self-serving one, but, and I know I'm being quite judgmental here to great men, but a lie that is pathetic, transparent, and desperate. The language of the verses in which they repeat, Anna, Sana, Ve'ata, Sana, sounds almost hysterical. The language of people who are guilty, not the language of their innocent father. Not only that, but it is just such a self-serving lie that got them into trouble in the first place when they had to lie to their father after they had sold Yosef. In Yevamot Samachem Bet, it's assumed by the Gemara that this is a lie. But Rav Shimon is kind to the brothers, and he says it is mutar l'shanot, permitted to alter the truth for the sake of shalom. Now, it seems to me that Yosef knows immediately that this is a lie. His tears when he cries when they tell him this are tears of empathy and sympathy for his poor, frightened brothers. But it is his kindness that he does not call them out for their lie or for any of their previous lies. Instead, he reassures them. The question that I have and that I've wondered for many years is it possible to understand how Yosef would know that they were lying? Is there a way that he could be sure that this was a lie and that they were not telling the truth so that he would honor his father's last wishes? Could he not have given them the benefit of the doubt? So one possibility is that they were just bad liars. Their faces gave them away. The self-serving convenience of the lie gave them away. Another possibility is that Yaakov just knew that his father would not have sent such a message without delivering it personally in his lifetime. Yaakov would have told him, Bichvodo ve'atzmo, to forgive his brothers. How much more effective would that request have been coming directly from Yaakov in the presence of the brothers? He himself was a deeply injured party to their cruelty in selling Yosef, but from the sinners themselves? I think not. Ramban makes this point too. A third possibility, which is the main point suggested by the Ramban and a number of other Rishonim, but none of them, interestingly, none of them on this story, in other places. The Dad Zekenim Mibalei Tosfot explain at the beginning of Vayigash, when Yosef reveals himself to his brothers, he clears out the whole room. And then he says, Gishunai lai Vayigoshu. He draws his brothers close to him. The Tosefet Bracha says here that Vayigash means to come so close that you can whisper into someone's ear. And he says, Ani Yosef asher mechartem oti Mitzrayma. I am Yosef that you sold down to Egypt. When he speaks of their crime, he says it so quietly that no one can hear, not the Egyptians and not even Binyamin, who may not have ever known about it. The Or HaChaim HaKadosh on Perek Mamhe Pasuk Chav Zayin, where when Yosef sends the brothers back to get Yaakov and bring him to Egypt, it says, and the brothers told Yaakov all that Yosef had said to him. He points out those words did not include the story of the original sin, which the brothers were too embarrassed to tell Yaakov. Of course, it is the Ramban who offers the coup de grace, and these are his words on Perek Mamhe Pasuk Chav Zayin. Yira'eh li, it seems to me, al derech hapshat, shelo hugad li'Yaakov kol yamav ki achav machru et Yosef. That Yaakov was never told his entire life that the brothers sold Yosef. Aval chashav ki haya to'eh basadeh ve'amotzi'im oto lekachuhu u'machru oto al Mitzrayim. He rather thought that Yosef was wandering in the field and was kidnapped and sold down to Egypt by some strangers. Ki achav lo ratzu lagid lo chatatam. Because the brothers did not want to tell Yaakov of their sin. They were too embarrassed. Af ki yaru lenafsham pen yiksov v'yikaleleim, and he thought perhaps Yaakov would curse them or cast them out of the family. V'Yosef b'musaro atov, and Yosef lo ratza lagid lo, did not want to tell Yaakov. It was not his story to tell. V'lekach ne'emar v'yitzavu el Yosef lemor avicha tziva lifnei moto lemor, and therefore in this story, when the brothers come to tell him, your father commanded us to forgive you, he knows, he cries because he knows that it is a lie. Yaakov could never have told the brothers to ask Yosef to forgive them because he did not know that there was anything to forgive. At great cost to himself, Yaakov kept the secret of his brother's shameful behavior to himself. All of their sins, the taunting, the stripping the coat off, the tearing it and dipping it in the goat's blood, they sat down to eat lunch while their brother called desperately for help from the pit. They nearly killed him, and they did not even think, except for Ruvain, what would happen to their poor father. They sold him down to the river and then they just went back to their lives. He never revealed any of that to anyone, and especially not to Yaakov. A brother who would act with that level of kindness is not a brother who's waiting for a chance to exact revenge. Yosef cries at how little his brothers understand of what he has done and of what he is doing for them. Now, the important thing here to Yosef is not how he feels about his brothers. Perhaps he's very angry at them. And whether or not he has forgiven them, I don't know if he's forgiven them. And it's not about whether or not they have or haven't done tshuva or enough tshuva. And it's not about power, which Yosef has. And it's not about truth, which Yosef has. The important thing to Yosef is that the brothers, all 12 of them, begin the next chapter of Jewish history together in Achdut. Yosef was willing to keep the secret of their betrayal as a secret, not to lie about it, just never to speak of it, in order to keep the family united as one. Of course, many years later, back to the other story, when Esav and Yaakov are reunited, Esav does not kill Yaakov. They make a sort of cold peace between them, and then they go their own ways, but not together. Yosef wants to make sure that that does not happen with his brothers. When they meet again, they stay together, and forever. One final point. I admit that I am troubled by Yosef's secrecy. The idea that we could or should sweep shameful behavior under the rug has been often and quite painfully debunked in our community. The idea that sinners might prosper for the sake of the greater good sounds almost fascistic. However, to be fair, it was Yosef's story and Yosef's secret to tell or not to tell. He was the victim, and he could decide whether truth or peace was the better path to shlemut. He chooses, and I cannot but be awed by him, especially in this petty generation that we live in, that someone could be so averse to retaliating against someone who hurt them, that someone could be so kind as to take that burden upon themselves, and that someone could be so committed to unity and brotherhood that they would offer them such a breathtaking second chance. Ken Yehi Ratzon, Shabbat Shalom.